Good afternoon and welcome to Naturally Chicago's webinar. Welcome to Wellness. Wellness is evolving and AI is reshaping discovery. I'm happy to introduce Jim Halama, CEO of Naturally Chicago, to start the program.
Thank you, Bob. What an exciting topical webinar. Today's wellness shoppers increasingly want personalized answers. What works for my body, my goals, my constraints. AI is becoming an interface for those answers, sitting between brands and consumers. Our panel of experts will discuss how wellness is evolving, how AI is changing and aiding discovery, and what brands can do to stay findable, credible, and chosen. Today's moderator is Katie Rosholt, Managing Director, Society US. Welcome, Katie.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Jim. Hi, everyone. On behalf of Naturally Chicago, I want to welcome you all. Thanks for joining from different time zones and states and countries, hopefully. We really appreciate you spending the time and taking some moments to learn about this great, important topic as we've discussed. My name is Katie Rosholt. I'm the Managing Director of Society here in the US, and I'll be moderating today's discussion. Just before we begin, a few quick housekeeping notes. This webinar will be recorded and shared with registered participants afterwards. Throughout the panel, please feel free to drop any questions you might have in the Q&A forum at the bottom at any time. We'll have a dedicated 15-minute session at the end to address as many questions as we can. As Jim mentioned, today we'll be talking about how wellness is evolving, how AI is changing and really aiding in that discovery process, and what brands can do right now to be findable, credible, and chosen. So our conversation is going to be modeled into 3 chapters just for organization, and each chapter will have 2 questions. So chapter 1 will be the new wellness consumer and how we earn trust. Chapter 2 will be discovery is shifting, what's working, what's not for wellness brands. And chapter 3 will be winning playbooks around content, commerce, measurement for wellness brands. With that, let's get started. It's my pleasure today to introduce our panelists. Tracey Halama, who's founder and CEO of Creekside Ventures. We have Katie Kloke, Senior Manager at Spins. We have Shiv Gupta, founder of U of Digital. And we have Margie Omastiak, Senior Buyer, Local Emerging Brands with Whole Foods Market Midwest. Thanks everyone for joining today. So the first question, we're going to start with you, Katie. Hopefully that's all right at Spins. As we know, the wellness consumer has shifted in the past decade. How would you define who our consumer is, how and where they shop, and what they're looking for that most influence their purchase decision?
Absolutely. Thanks, Katie. And I feel like at Spins, we're well poised to talk about this question, right? Because we see this every day with some of the brands that we support, similar to Margie, with some of the brands that she sees on shelf as well. And we really see the wellness shifts too of the consumer in the data too. So more than ever, I would say everyone is a wellness consumer, right? We know 99% buy some kind of wellness product, whether that's a dietary supplement, a prebiotic soda, a better for you jerky stick, organic produce. There's a wide breadth of wellness in the store. And we do know that half of the growth in store came from naturally positioned products in the last year. So of course, wellness seems to be driving a lot of the growth just within CPG in general. And brands certainly have helped to make wellness, more widespread on shelf, but they're really just responding to consumer demand. So that's, and this idea of something that we like to call conscious consumption or preference-based consumption, really it's the idea that consumers are being more intentional. So of course they're prioritizing what fits into their budgets. They have very real constraints when it comes to, financial economic factors, of course. So that's always going to be a factor for them. And it has to taste good, or good enough to make those choices. But they are also letting values drive what they buy where possible increasingly. So that means, wellness can look a little different for each person, and that's on purpose. And that's where we're seeing wellness shift too. And some of the ways that we're seeing this show up are, prioritizing clean labels, avoiding other ingredients like red dye 40 or seed oils, things like that. Looking for products with maybe a little bit of that extra functional benefit snuck in versus one without, and choosing that product over another. active nutrition, things that fit with their active lifestyle. And yeah, really just products that align with their lifestyle and identity too. And that means, they're making conscious trade-offs. They're both on the health side of things. Maybe they're willing to get some protein, but also have some sugar in there, but it's real sugar, so that maybe that's more okay for their lifestyle, and two, what they're willing to pay more for. And the other thing too we see is, increasing premiumization of private label, which definitely ties into that, balancing the values that they have with, these other constraints that they have, really rising to meet those needs. One example is, at Whole Foods, which I'm sure Margie well aware of, things like regenerative organic rice and grains on the shelf, from a store brand. But consumers are also busy, they want wellness to be flexible. We see a rise in, snacking, but it's not just any snacking. It's like that nutrient dense, smart snacking. When we talk about the wellness consumer, we also see the younger generation driving a lot of this. So with the younger generation, Gen Z, millennials, label literacy has grown, as has, the amount of data at their fingertips, right? So consumers are scrutinizing the labels a little bit more, looking for ingredients they can pronounce, but also they have all these tools to do that a little bit more easily. Even if they don't recognize an ingredient, they can Google it or use their preferred AI bot, So some are prioritizing macros. Wouldn't be a CPG call if I didn't mention protein and fiber maxing, which are two trends that we certainly continue to measure and see the impact of this wellness consumer shifting towards those nutrients. The other thing though about Gen Z is that they value the experience of food too, both like visually, how it looks, and how those premium, products can really elevate their kitchen. We see that in like some of these global sauces that people are using, global inspired flavors, but also socially and like shareability. So I would say that goes a long way for the wellness consumer, the new wellness consumer, in the digital age, right? For both brands, and wellness trends. So we see things like cottage cheese. I feel like there's been several waves of cottage cheese taking off on TikTok, and then boom, we see that spike in sales and consumers actually reacting to it and purchasing and really wanting to hop onto this trend, this shareable aspect of wellness. And then the last thing I would add too is they're really shopping everywhere. So when it comes to where they're shopping, it's offline, it's online. We see 73% of consumers are using multiple channels. So we like to call that anywhere commerce, since it really is becoming, increasingly intertwined, increasingly seamless. But what really holds true is that they're still using both online and natural retailers and those natural organic stores as a hub for discovery. We've always seen that, and we just see it increasingly, which I'm sure that Margie can speak a little bit more on as well.
Such great points, Katie. Tracey, what do you have to add from your perspective? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, so obviously, 10 years ago, I was part of the founding team of Vital Proteins, and then I eventually became CEO of Vital Proteins. So it's interesting because I think I have a very unique perspective of how wellness trends have shifted over the past 10 years. Because, 10 years ago, we spent a lot of time educating the consumer on what collagen was, and that collagen was an animal-based product. And we did something very never been done before, and put a cow on front of pack so people understood that it wasn't a vegan product. It wasn't, coming from some type of, ingredient, but it was, certainly coming from a cow. So I feel like over the years, transparency has become so much more important to the wellness consumer that, 20 years ago, if you saw a product on shelf and it said hair, skin, and nails, you didn't necessarily turn it over and really try to determine what the sourcing was, where the sourcing was coming from. Non-GMO wasn't around 20 years ago. So it's been an evolution of really looking into kind of the cleanliness of the product, the ingredients, what's the functionality. I know that Katie touched upon it. Number one is flavor. If you don't have a good tasting product, you're never going to win the consumer back. So it's really important to lead with flavor. But like the next most important thing is the ingredients and what the functionality is. So obviously, there certainly have been trends over the past 10 years You've seen it in collagen. You've seen it in colostrum. Now we just talked about fiber maxing. So there's always going to be the hot new trend. It was omega 369 oil 15 years ago, and then it became collagen. Somewhere along the line, it was vegan protein, plant-based protein. Now we kind of gone back to whole animal protein. But nevertheless, protein is going to be an important macronutrient. Fiber is going to be a very important macronutrient. I think as how consumers find these products, there's never been as many wellness products or supplement brands out there than there are today. So it really is imperative that you lead with a level of authenticity, making sure that, what problem your product is solving, that there's an authentic story behind it. So that's really critical. I would say credible recommenders. Back in the day of Vital, I think that we kind of dipped our toe in the water of what credible recommenders were. And for us, they were functional practitioners and RDs and people who actually had credibility. They use these products, they've seen the change that their bodies or their clients' bodies have felt. The felt state of what this product does for me is really, really critical, because if you're going to part with 30 or 40 or $50 of a supplement, you want to have a felt state, difference of before taking this, supplement and after taking this supplement. So all of that really plays into what the current wellness consumer is looking for. I will say the methods and channels of how we get to that consumer have certainly changed. Back when we started Vital Proteins, we dabbled on Instagram day one, and even before Instagram, we worked with bloggers. So bloggers were the original influencers. Then they became influencers, and there's certainly nano influencers and macro influencers, and depending on who you talk to, there's a use case for both. But now, it's not only TikTok. TikTok has certainly become a real good kind of quick hit education, long format on YouTube. But now even like Chat GPT and Meta AI can point you to products, and even you can purchase products off these new AI platforms. So how people consume what products they're going to learn about. And, we all have heard that it takes 7 times until a brand really kind of breaks through on a purchase. That was before COVID. Now, post-COVID, in the world of the digital landscape, we're hearing that it's anywhere between 11 to 14 times. So you really need to have, as a brand, you really need to have a concerted effort that you're trying to capture and educate that consumer, no matter what digital platform they are on, or no matter what channel of trade they're shopping, be it Amazon or Whole Foods. So those are some of the things that I think have evolved with time, both from an operator lens and then also now from an investor lens that I've seen.
All great points. Thank you, Tracey. Margie, actually, we were just saying now, so Tracey's point about retail, what's from your perspective? What would you like to add?
Well, they really covered most of it for you all out there. I would have to add to the whole wellness piece of this landscape has changed tremendously, where you can look at macronutrients and you can focus in on what is the trend of protein and fiber in the same way that is being spoken about. I feel like the wellness customer has transformed across all categories, where I spent a fair amount of time in wellness and beauty in my career and definitely worked with customers across the board, understanding what their needs were and what they were looking for. And really, so much information came from that, right? We looked at what were they looking for? What did they want to know about? How did that guide all of the retail decisions that we were making? And now that there are so many more opportunities out there for folks to purchase their products from either Whole Foods Market or Amazon or other sites that are available for folks to actually really just have so much to choose from, there's a lot more that has to go into it from the brand's perspective. And wellness not only goes across the categories, in the store wide, but it also goes across what people see as wellness. Wellness is not just the product they're consuming, but what is that product coming in? What does that package look like? Where is that coming from on the scope of what they're doing? And what is their mission or their story? How does that actually contribute to the wellness of our planet? We have more to be concerned about overall than just looking at products from the standpoint of it is a wellness product, it is providing good nutrient base for me as a consumer versus the whole world and how it impacts that. So we look at all of that information. And in the retail world, space is a huge commodity, right? In the digital world, there's an endless amount of shelf space. So understanding the difference between what that looks like and then how that translates for buyers that are looking at that potential to bring that into their assortment is a really critical piece of how a brand shows up. Understanding the digital platform out there that helps them test out what is their product doing, how well is it performing out there in the world, to be able to have it become a part of a trusted retailer like Whole Foods Market. We are still one of the most trusted retailers in the natural market. So people do come to us finding that we've done that screening, we've done that work, and trusting that those are products that they're going to be able to find in our stores that they can try and can experiment with. But I want to circle back to the whole wellness piece of it. It's like wellness is a balance, right? It was at one point focused so much on nutrition and how is it providing my body with all of the optimal results that it can, where now it's like that is always going to be at the base of what we do. We want to nourish our bodies, right? But we also want to indulge ourselves and we want to enjoy food and we want to enjoy our supplements, and we don't want it to be something that we're drudging to get through. We want to enjoy it. So there's the balance of like, what does your product bring to the consumer? How are you showing up in the market? Is that product showing up in a way that makes me want to buy it just by looking at it? Is it really showing me an indulgent piece of it, but also an efficacious part of it? So there's so much for brands to consider when they're presenting to being able to be seen. Another Me Too, we don't need them. There's that, we've seen that across the beverage community, you know, where kombucha was the kombucha was everything, right? There was another kombucha and another kombucha, and now there's more opportunity even in the beverage industry as our brands have begun to show up, right? So I feel that it's really important that the wellness brands out there across the board are really coming to the table with something that's going to excite the consumer, that's going to be like, yeah, this is something I want to do, I want to try. If it's 5, 6, 7, or 11 times and then you land them in your pocket, that's awesome. But it really does stretch across all categories.
Yeah, I love that. So if you're joining us now, we're talking about the new wellness consumer and just really how to build trust. So the next question is really for Tracey to start with, but how are you connecting, wellness consumers with the products to earn that trust? We talked a little bit about it, but curious, as you're working with so many brands at all different stages, like what's some advice you have there?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned credible recommenders in the first part, and I think just to kind of build upon those credible recommenders, like credible recommenders come in different shapes and forms, depending on who the consumer is. So I look at my children, and they're 19 and 22 respectively, and they follow they're influencers, they follow, kind of TikTokers that have amassed a following. They follow some celebrities, right? If Hailey Bieber is doing something, then it's definitely a cool thing to do. So, they're gathering their credible recommenders, and their credible recommenders are different than mine. So, like I would say, Dr. Mary Claire Haven is a credible recommender for me because the perimenopause, menopause, kind of frame up that she often talks about is like where I'm sitting right now. So when I hear her speak about these are the things that any woman over 40 needs to be taking. They need to be taking magnesium. They need to be taking 100 grams of protein or more a day. They need to be prioritizing fiber. Everyone needs to have, 30 to 35 grams of fiber a day. They need vitamin D. And if they're not getting it through sunlight, then they need to overdose on vitamin D in Chicago winters, right? So like that to me really speaks with credibility because she is an MD. Obviously, she has a supplement line too. So there is, a little bit of a personal agenda. So you always have to take that in mind. But, everyone's going to come to the table with a different message. And I think the great thing about these social media platforms is that the storytelling shows up very differently. So if you want quick bursts of information, like, you go on TikTok and you see a 30-second clip and oh, hey, this product for menopause would be great for, kind of hair loss, as a lot of people going through menopause like do suffer from that. So, I think that it always kind of takes form in different, formats, but the credible recommender thing is very, very important. And whether you subscribe to Claire Haven or Mark Hyman talking about anti-seed oils and, no sugar and the sugar busters way back when. I think that that is someone that can provide that authenticity and really provide a level of credibility and empathy because a lot of times they too have faced health challenges that have segued their lives into wellness products and supplements.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Okay, for those of us that are joining, sorry about the Zoom confusion, but it sounds like hopefully everyone's here. We're just beginning chapter 2. Don't worry, you didn't miss much, and it'll be shared afterwards, the recording. But chapter 2 is going over to our friend Shiv. So the conversation right now is around discovery that's shifting, kind of what's working, what's not working for brands. And so Shiv, really wondering what new tools are available to help at point of sale specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thanks for having me. Just so everybody kind of knows, I come at this discussion from the perspective of being more on the technology side of the industry, also from the training side of the industry. I run a company called U of Digital, so we provide training on marketing tools and technologies. And obviously, as you can imagine, we're doing a lot of training on AI right now. So I'm going to talk a lot about how AI is changing all of this. And so, when we think about which new tools are available at the point of sale, just from the AI perspective, I kind of think of two key things. So first of all, it's AI shopping assistants that are actually at the retailers themselves, right? So I don't know if you all have been to Amazon lately, but they have a new AI thing called Rufus, named after a dog. And if you start talking to Rufus, Rufus can help you with all sorts of things in your Amazon shopping journey. If you go to Walmart, Walmart has a dog as well named Sparky. I don't know why they're all named after dogs. Dogs are friendly and helpful. I guess that's why. But you could start talking to Sparky and ask it all sorts of questions, and Sparky can be very helpful while you shop around on Walmart. And, if you go to, countless retailers nowadays, they have these AI assistants and they can be really, really powerful, right? Because they help you kind of make sense of what is available to buy. They help you figure out what's available and what's not inventory wise. They help you figure out shipping windows. They also just answer questions about, products, right? So if you're like, hey, listen, I'm looking for XYZ kind of product, help me find it. The AI assistant helps you instead of going to that chat bar, which feels now almost like Stone Age, right? Where you go to the chat bar, you just type in a keyword and you kind of get what you want, but you kind of don't. Right. And so I think that's really, really powerful. It was interesting. There was a bunch of stats put out by like the Amazons and the Walmarts of the world after the holiday shopping season that basically showed that consumers that are engaging with the AI assistants are people that buy more products. They convert at a higher rate. They stay on the site much longer, and they have higher loyalty. And like, to me, that's a fascinating bit of information, right? So I'd say that's number one. At the point of sale, like having that friendly conversational kind of AI assistant, that's changing like how we kind of transact and commerce and the consumer experience in general. The second thing is just the traditional LLMs, right? So, a lot of people are just going to their LLM of choice, whether that be ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, or Copilot, and they just start talking to that LLM about what they're interested in, right? And the interesting thing I think about like this AI revolution is it's kind of collapsing the funnel in a way, right? Because everything can happen in a single session, right? Where you go and you're like, hey, I had this experience where I was buying some things for my kids over Christmas, and I went to the LLM and I started talking to it about what kind of thing I should buy, right? So at that point, I'm very much at the top of the funnel. But then I quickly moved down the funnel and I was ready to buy by the end, and I bought the product, right? And so I think the LLMs are extremely powerful. And, I think the LLMs are interesting because they need to be able to go out and get the information from the retailers and from the internet and from the manufacturers of the actual products to be able to surface the right information to the consumer. And it's not like a closed environment like Amazon Rufus or Walmart Sparky, where Amazon and Walmart can train the AI really effectively on all the products it sells. The LLM needs to go out and fetch all that information, right? And I think from a retailer and a brand perspective, that means a lot of things for you all, right? That means you have to figure out how to influence that LLM. You have to figure out how the LLM can properly scrape all of your data. You need to, make sure that the LLM speaks about your brands and your products favorably, right? And so there's a lot of work that can go into that. And now to add, even more complexity to all of this, the LLMs are starting to launch ads, right? So you all probably saw this. ChatGPT now is letting you run ads. So beyond just influencing the LLM, you have to start thinking about the LLMs as a potential paid advertising channel, right? And so there's a lot going on there, right? It's just like an entire new paradigm shift with how people buy. You can actually transact. I think Tracey mentioned this, or Margie might have mentioned this. You can actually buy the products in the LLM itself, right? And so there's a lot of work that goes into that too. So yeah, those are a couple of things to think about in terms of point of sale.
I think that's a lot of things that are on a lot of people's mind that have joined this call. So I don't know if there's any other assistance that you might be able to provide from your perspective regarding just like, how do you validate some of that? So yes, it's incumbent upon the brand or the retailer potentially to help like influence and make sure LLMs have the information, the copy, but how does that get validated then from like a tech side?
Yeah, so validation with AI is really difficult, right? Because it's not binary anymore. Like people always say like LLMs are probabilistic. And an example of that is if I go to ChatGPT and I type in the same exact prompt 10 different times, I'm going to get 10 different answers, right? So it's very much a probabilistic technology. It's not, hey, like search, if you put in a keyword, regardless of where you are or who you are, you're probably going to get the same, 10 blue links at the top, which is more of a deterministic thing, right? So LLMs are probabilistic, which means you're not trying to just validate whether something is right or wrong. You need to actually like test and test and test and test in different ways and test different variables. And you're probably never, ever getting to 100% of what you want to in terms of like the outcome or what the LLM says, because again, it's probabilistic. But what you want to be able to do is get better and better and better and at a higher and higher percentage or a higher and higher hit rate, right? And like the way you have to do that is again, testing, right? So testing breaks down into a lot of different dimensions or vectors, right? So obviously testing across models. So you have to test Gemini, you have to test ChatGPT, you have to test Claude, Copilot, test all of the different AIs. And within those, they have different models, right? So Claude's got Sonnet and Opus, and Gemini's got this and that, and so on and so forth. So it gets really complex really fast. And so testing across different models, but you can't stop there, right? You have to test across different prompts. You have to test across different contextual windows. And all of the different types of variables that you can test across in order to, again, get better and better and better and show up how you want to be showing up. So that's really, really important. Another testing mechanism, and this gets really meta very fast, right, is using AI to test AI. So obviously, like, listen, we need humans to test everything that we do. We need humans in the loop. It's of critical importance, especially when using AI tools. But there are really powerful AI tools that help you test nowadays, like test against consumers, for example. So I don't know if you all have heard of this concept of synthetic audiences, right? But basically using AI to build out different types of personas and have those personas test, different copy, different messages, different AI tools. One company I think that's doing really good work in this category is called Verve Labs. And so Verve helps you build like an entire panel of synthetic audiences to do a lot of different types of testing, right? So I think these are some ways in which you can test. And then also, I mentioned, this idea of like how you show up in search. You can run all these tests, you can do them manually. It gets very cumbersome very fast. And so, as you can imagine, there's a whole host of new technology and tools available out there to help you. A lot of these tools are called GEO tools, generative engine optimization. It's like the new version of SEO. And so you have companies like Profound or Peak AI or Evertune that basically surface all of this data. They run hundreds and hundreds of thousands and millions of queries all the time across all the different platforms to help you see how you're showing up, right? And then from there, it's on you all to be actionable or take action against it, right? So, okay, how do we optimize this? How do we get better? Well, we need to make sure we have more FAQs, right? AI loves FAQs for some reason. That wasn't necessarily a search thing, but AI loves FAQs. AI loves comparison tables, right? This product versus that product. AI loves content that has multiple sources. And so just kind of getting smarter, just like we did with search engine optimization, now we have generative engine optimization or basically AI optimization tools to figure out and then start optimizing how you show up.
Those are such good examples. And I think, some of the comments here in the chat are already saying people are using synthetic audiences and some maybe are not yet. So that's an awesome opportunity to kind of dig in and learn more. So those following along, we're beginning in chapter 3, but honestly, Shiv, what you just talked about really kind of leads to the next section perfectly, which is these things seem a bit at odds, right? Wellness is very personal. So how can we balance scalable personalization, but like with the authenticity and with the empathy that consumers are really expecting and desiring, especially as we talked about with regards to the feel state. And so Tracey, I'm going to go back to you since you had talked about that earlier. How do you counsel brands and work with brands? And as a brand leader, how do you make sure there's a nice balance of scalable personalization?
So the personalization thing I think is just so, so critical in this day and age. I don't know how many of you guys wear Oura rings or, something like a wearable, right? So we're continually getting insights as to our sleep, our readiness. Did we eat too late? Did we drink too much alcohol? Did we not move enough the day before? Did we move too much the day before? So like we're constantly feeding our algorithms, if you will, more information about what's important to us and how we're feeling, what like health issues, health challenges we're going through. I feel like TikTok and other platforms have become almost like a personal practitioner of sorts. So if your first issue is I've got some gut health issues or my skin is breaking out, like you don't necessarily go to the doctor day one, you go to TikTok and you type in your issue. You could go to Cloud or ChatGPT too. You type in your issue, and then you hear more from people that are also going through the same issues. And these are the, kind of workarounds, the supplements that I'm taking that seem to be working. Here's, some of the things that I'm doing to hack my life a little bit more. So I think the notion of personal practitioners, a lot of people will go and subscribe to Function Health. I've done it myself. And all of a sudden you're now getting, 100, 200 biomarkers that normally your, regular GP from 10 years ago would have never tested for all of these biomarkers. So we're collecting more data about our health journey. And I think that there's such a focus on longevity and waking up and feeling better. No one wants to, wake up and have creaky joints or, like a chronic, condition that really like sets back their day to day. So I feel like all of that is really kind of converging in on what health and wellness is and ensuring that it's personal. Because, some people may absolutely thrive off 150 grams of protein a day. other people, like, I know my dad, if he had 150 grams of protein a day because he's got some kidney issues, that would put him over the edge. So I think now we have a lot more data than we ever did before. Now we can turn to maybe the TikTok experts aren't necessarily experts, but at least it's, someone else that is going through a similar challenge that you might be going through. So you feel community. So it's kind of that, that notion of empathy. Oh, I'm going through this menopause symptom as well. And for anyone that's had a hot flash before, you know how like disruptive it is to your sleep. So like if you can hack your hot flash, then you're going to do whatever. And you're going to get your function health test and you're going to upload it to ChatGPT or Cloud or any of the other tools. And you're going to learn about what you ought to be doing from a protocol standpoint. And I think that wellness has never been so personalized before. 10 years ago, it was, oh, I'm going to take this vegan protein powder. I'm going to make a smoothie. I'm going to put some berries in there because berries are good for antioxidants. And oh, I heard something positive about acai. And now it's just much, much in tune, more in tune to your body, your phase of life, and your perspective.
Yeah, all great points, Tracy. Thank you. And Margie, I'm curious for you, what about your perspective on, just really balancing that scalable personalization that we're talking about?
An interesting question because when I think about scaling, it always says we're going to make more, we're going to be more available, we're going to widen the breadth of these things, right? When you say personalization, you bring that down into something smaller. But I think what I've seen over time in the wellness category across all categories is that personalization looks for that empathy, as Tracy's talking about, looks for the commonality. It's like, I don't want to be alone necessarily, but I want the things that I need to help me feel the best I can feel. Longevity is something that we're all looking at because we're all living longer and we're all living healthier lives, and there's opportunity for that. And the data is there to support it, and it's at your fingertips on every level. But there's still that piece of personalization that people want to stay in touch with. So if your product is bringing something that allows that consumer to feel like, oh, you hit that right on the head for me. If we want to stay in the trend of menopause, certainly been through that, long past it, and can totally relate to all of those experiences being difficult, and can also empathize with the fact that there's way more opportunities for those things to be there now to support a woman's body that weren't there 20 years ago, that were still, stabbing at this possibility, that possibility. Oh, they weren't even willing to test on certain herbs. So the idea of scalability it's a whole group effort that's coming from brands, that's coming from retailers, that's coming from the digital platforms, that's coming from AI, getting all of this information and all of us using it together to collaborate on the opportunities that we need to have to be able to make this all available. So scalability is there as personalization is being brought forth, and personalization in the realm of privacy used to seem like it was something way more protected, where now with all of the influencers, with all the credibility that's out there, it's shared. More and more is shared. Emotional stability is really, we're counting on it from each other in this world. And so we look to that, and at Whole Foods and in Amazon and in Walmart and any other place where you're shopping, those things are coming to fruition from the ability for people to share. So we're all learning, we're all keeping our eyes open, we're all listening to what chat and every other AI intelligence has to offer us. And it has a lot to offer everyone in every direction. And if we continue to stay focused on that opportunity, we will continue to be able to offer the prime products that everybody's looking for.
Love that. Katie, I don't know if you have any quick other thoughts there.
I think, well, Margie and Tracy definitely hit the nail on the head with everything that they said. I would just add to going into the women's health example, I think a really interesting one right now is creatine as an example of like something that's currently not a little bit more niche, maybe within the active nutrition space, but definitely scalable in terms of it's starting to expand, from strictly like a gym bro type audience into prioritizing women's health benefits and getting into different formats. So things like that, where it's like it's becoming more personal in that way, but also more scalable. But I think the other thing to mention, is all of this. It's really important to know and understand your consumer, right? Because it's like personalization is less about brands making 100 different products to fit everybody perfectly and be everything to everyone, but like the consumer trying to find what fits to me and knowing who that consumer is, where they're shopping, what media channels they're using, how to find them, and what claims matter to them. So really that understanding who that is and tying it back to that too.
Yeah, great points. All right, well, I know we have a few minutes left, but we've got one more question, so timing is great. And Shiv, I'll turn it to you first, but how is AI really being built in from your perspective into like creative optimization and execution? Because I think the people on this call are probably really interested in how you're helping, make those choices.
Yeah, I mean, it's being built in obviously into the entire like marketer tech stack, right? And so, in all of those areas, I think creative is one of the first places. Obviously, we've seen AI create a lot of disruption, right? Like I'm sure you guys saw the Super Bowl and saw a bunch of AI generated ads. Some were terrible and some were okay, and so it's right in front of our face in terms of how AI is disrupting the creative process. And like I think AI is disrupting from the ideation stage to the content creation stage, even the personalization as we're talking about here, the feedback loop. I think the big thing with creative though is just the ability for AI to help build video at scale and TV spots at scale. Like that's hugely valuable potentially, right? If done right, if humans are properly in the loop. Obviously we've seen it go wrong. You don't want it to go wrong for your brand, but there's so much kind of democratization, right, of marketing and advertising from that perspective. So creative, and then in terms of like optimization and execution, all the buying tools that we use, right, they all have AI built in now, right? So if you're using Google, which I'd imagine most folks use Google, they have a product now called Performance Max, and Performance Max is your easy button. Click the button, enter your ROAS goals, and boom, like Performance Max will do its thing. Every walled garden, every big platform has their version of that, right? Meta has Advantage Plus. Amazon's got Performance Plus, and on and on and on, right? So everyone's kind of putting their new AI tools out into market for optimization and execution. A couple other things I'd say is like we're seeing the rise of agents now. And I think agents are really fascinating from like a workflows perspective. So they're not necessarily like oh, hey, the agent's going to revolutionize how you build creative, but the agent will revolutionize how you interact with the new AI creative tools, right? Potentially, or your feedback loops, or your process, or your ideation phase, right? And I think that's where agentic capabilities are going to become really, really powerful. And I do think that there's going to be somewhat of a death of, let's call it traditional software and UIs in the next several years. Because at the end of the day, like we're seeing that humans shouldn't have to log into software and click a bunch of buttons and pull a bunch of levers, right? Agents should be able to do that kind of routine work for us. And so I think keeping an eye on agents from that perspective will be really important as it pertains to like your marketing stack. And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, ads in AI, right? Like ads in AI is just going to be a paradigm shift for how we think about our channel mix, how we reach consumers. I know it's super early right now, but you better believe it's probably the next big thing since search advertising, right? So those are some of the things I'd say. And then last thing, I'll just kind of plug, like if you need training on these types of things, like that's what we provide at U of Digital. So if you're a marketer or you need to learn more about AI or get your teams up to speed on AI, please hit us up. We actually have a promo code that we can give to all the Naturally Chicago folks for our next upcoming bootcamp.
Perfect way to end it. Thank you to all the panelists. That's been a really great conversation. I'm going to turn it over to Joan, as I guess we're going to be doing Q&A a little differently as the form isn't working. So Joan, I'll let you share screen when you're ready.
Thank you. Actually, it's Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
First of all, I want to apologize for the screw up with Glue Up and Zoom. We've never had this problem before. Produced dozens of webinars over the past 6-7 years, but this one was a problem, so we deeply apologize. That being said, we will send the recording out within an hour. So if you miss the first 15 minutes or so, you'll be able to catch it on the recording. And of course, anybody who didn't join us will be able to see it too. So quick plug for Naturally Chicago. Join us as a brand member today. Margie is one of many retail partners with Whole Foods. We've also got Costco, Walmart, Mariano's, Fresh Time, and it's an incredible network. We're very supportive of brands in a lot of different ways. A great mentorship program, got a network of 75 plus investors. It's only $500 a year for brands, so check us out. May 27th is our Naturally Rising Pitch Slam. We'll have 6 brands pitching for over 100,000 in prizes. Visit our Pitch Slam page on Naturally Chicago for eligibility requirements. It's an amazing event. We've got a retail panel, got an omni-channel panel, some leading investors who invest in food and beverage CPG will be discussing current trends. So it's a great day. And you can find out more at our morning mingle on March 10th. We'll have previous participants, our staff, others will be there. And so if you want to know more about the Pitch Slam, come on down and talk to our team. Going to Expo West, having a party Thursday, March 5th, 4 to 6 p.m. On the Catella Terrace. The Midwest and Mountain Mingle, it's 4 Naturally Network chapters, Chicago, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Colorado. It's going to be fun. We hope you can join us. And sorry about this, but we have no Zoom Q&A function with this Zoom problem. We've lost our Q&A function. So Katie is going to wing it.
Love it. Happy to tap dance. I'm not sure, can people raise their hands or what can we see?
You know what? Actually, people can probably just ask a live question because the link we sent out was a panelist link.
Okay, great.
So
well,
if you have
whoever
a
wants
question,
to come off camera or put a hand up in the air, I think I can see most of the screens here. Does anyone have a question for the panelists? If not, that's okay.
How about you, Katie? You got any?
Well, I'm just curious for the rest of the panelists, whoever wants to go first. What AI tool are you like either using right now and you love, or you're most interested to try out? Shiv, why don't you start?
So just keep it simple. I really like Claude. So Claude is the tool, the AI chatbot from Anthropic. And, I think ChatGPT, they're all good in different ways, right? Gemini is great for certain things. ChatGPT is great for certain things. I find myself creating a lot of content, right? Because, I run a training company and we create a lot of educational content. We, put a lot of thought leadership out. And Claude is a fantastic content creator, right? And so, I just find, when I go through these exercises where I need to build, let's say, a blog post or some kind of explainer content, Claude understands nuance of the English language, I think, a lot better than some of the other chat tools. And so I think from a marketing perspective, that can be really powerful, right? I'm just going to go ahead and say I really like Claude for that particular use case.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's very conversational in its responses, which I love. Tracey, what about you?
I mean, Shiv took my answer. So
Sorry.
All the Claude fans.
I will say that, like for any of you that are on the brand side, there's Ingredients AI and Forecastable. So if you're thinking about like putting together, a product and you want to kind of tap into like what are the hot trends on flavor, ingredients. AI is like a very good tool. I would also say, one of the things that either makes or breaks young companies is supply chain. It's not the sexiest, but it's so important from a demand planning and from a forecasting perspective. And a lot of young brands don't have the ability to bring on $100,000 a year demand planner. So forecastable is also a very good tool for those brand builders out there.
Love that. That's a great one. Margie, what about you?
To answer your question as to what one AI tool I would use, I don't know that I could actually answer that comfortably. And I would have to lean into the Amazon tools that are at my disposal, of course. But I would say that I think one of the things I would really like to lean into, especially from my personal path of the work I do, is to understand how to help support getting more local information into that tool as well. So not just having it be allowing people to understand that those opportunities exist, and what do I do or what can our group do that can enable that to be more accessible to more folks out there for that whole piece of the scalability. I want that opportunity. When I say local, I don't mean just from the local standpoint of a local, it's in my neighborhood, local piece, but local and emerging is like the next thing and the next big, where are we going with it? So being able to really trigger that with AI is an opportunity. I mean, I use AI on a regular basis, I have to admit. There are just some things about the AI tools that are smarter, and they manage to polish things up really well. And you can put your own flair back into what you use it for. So I'm not afraid of it. I've opened my mind and heart up to knowing that this is the way the future is going to go. And so I'm happy to contribute where I can contribute to make it a better tool.
Love it. And Katie, what about you? It doesn't have to just be one, and we've already said Claude, so like, I'm sorry about that. If you want to say Claude, you totally can.
No, I would kind of pivot a little and say it's not necessarily a tool, but like one facet of AI that I'm most interested in exploring, mostly for like the brands that we work with sake, is just understanding how to make products more discoverable to AI agents. And I know that's something Shiv talked a lot about and touched on too, is like attracting humans is very different than attracting like an AI agent. So what does that look like? What are the types of things that they're like ingesting, and what's going to make you, bubble to the top? So that's like that's the aspect of AI that I think is going to be top of mind for us at Spins, for me personally.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the good news is they're not like, none of us are short on options. There's a lot of new tools, and every day I swear there's a new one to learn. So I think that's the best part about having a forum like this where we can all share and learn from one another. And I just want to thank the panelists again, because everyone's perspective is so unique and from a different angle within the wellness space. And hopefully, though, everyone's perspectives, when they're blended together, really gave this conversation some meat today, and helps all those that joined, because we try to keep it at least a little bit open and fluid, in that some people joining the call maybe from a brand perspective or a marketing side or supply chain side or a retail side, data, AI, tech. We're not sure, but we appreciate all of you to be here, and apologies again for any of the tech difficulties at the beginning. If there are any burning questions, you can absolutely feel free to get in touch. I know that the team is going to follow up again with a recording, but also Shiv kindly offered, for those that are interested in kind of bolstering their tech and AI knowledge, he's going to graciously offer a 25% off for people that registered and joined today. And so that's a really great opportunity, because I think as an industry, we can all lean in and help each other stay informed, be educated on all these new innovations and every new AI tool that's available to us to be smarter practitioners, utilizing our own agent brains that we have, but also helping to make sure the AI tools are helping us on our journeys. So whether you're a small emerging brand or a large scale, corporate. So I think the training sessions will be really useful. So if you're interested, we'll share that link around with those at the end of the call with the recording as well. So thank you again, everyone. I will turn it back over to Jim or Joan. Otherwise, I just want to again thank all the panelists for such a great conversation today.
Thanks, Katie. And if you do have a question that we weren't able to get to, send it to info@naturallychicago.org. And again, apologies for the technical difficulties. We'll be sending the recording out shortly. Thank you for joining us, panelists. It was an awesome group despite the challenges.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Bye, y'all.
everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Everyone.